take me back to my boots and saddle. Ooh.
This one's called Spread the Love. Love inspired after being struck by an arrow from Cupid's bow. They say love hurts, and now we know. That's probably why at last we feel the pain. If he'd thrown chocolate candy, think of the weight we'd gain. Or how beautiful this place would be if he threw everybody a flower. Now wouldn't that be neat? A new bouquet every hour? So get out there, stay mindful of those arrows, and do your part. It's Valentine's Day, so spread the love that's in your heart.
I'm not a rancher or a cowgirl, I wish I was, but I can wrangle just about any boat down any western river. And I've started writing years ago, and painting and sketching in camp at night, river camps under the stars. I have 3 haiku that I hope you will see evoke the essence of the West and our ranching. They're not all mine. The closest I could come to really is my granddaughter, who's a horse trainer and a barrel racer. And her horse Diesel was just named the Montana State Champion barrel racing horse. So she's really, it's in my blood from her. And this poem, this haiku comes from Chadley Robinson from Pierre, South Dakota. 8 seconds, the bull rider opens a hand to the sky. Shall I read it again, or is once? 8 seconds, the bull rider raises a hand to the sky. Here's another one that you may jog a memory from a night camp. One of the wolves shows its face, firelight. This one's from Alan Burns, a local Colorado Springs poet. Distant Virga, the ranch dog's eyes, different colors. And this is one of mine in my book, Western Brushstrokes. It just came out this year. Indian paintbrush blooms around the cow skull. Indian paintbrush blooms around the cow skull. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm John Armstrong. I grew up down in southern Arizona, a little mining town called Bisbee. Graduated from Nogales High School, and then I went way up north to Tucson and Flagstaff to go to school. Traveled around with the Air Force for about 32 years and settled here in Colorado. I personally think that Arizona, New Mexico, and Colorado are God's own country. And most of my poems tend to center around those areas. Concerning animals with a fang or a spine, I don't normally draw a line. On life's curving highway, they can go their way, as long as I can go mine. This is a haiku. Broken glass sparkles in desert roadside turnout, crystal blue skies. This one goes back a few years to a gentleman I met one time. 15-cent burgers. Man who lured flying saucer playing ocarina. His glass eye stares off. Another day in Tucson. Thank you.
Last year I did a poem of a friend who lives up in Outlook, Washington, about horses. And I failed to mention his name. You know, I did the poem, and I was so intent to make sure it was not Sunnyside, not Mabden, but Outlook Washington. So I memorized Outlook and forgot Norm Parker, the author. So I'll do this one again this year so Norm gets the credit he's due. It's a delightful, tongue-in-cheek, humorous, twinkling cowboy eye take on horses. Horses. By the way, I'm afraid I might not get the right horses. If you need to correct me on some of these kinds of horses, you do that, okay? Because I'm not sure, but in the pronunciation. All right, horses. There's horses big and horses small. There's some that's short and others tall, and their colors, too, are quite diverse. Tell you about that the very next verse. There's appies and paints and steely grays and seal browns and blood red bays, strawberry roan, and of course there's yeller. Out any color to suit a feller. There's lineback duns, buckskins, and blacks. There's blue roans, and that's a fact. I've seen them brown, I've seen them white, and Gruyere too. Now that's a sight. Seen a few the color of smoke. Heck, I seen one green. Nah, that's a joke. Yep. There's horses big and horses small. Some are short and others tall, and lots of them that's in between, including the one I saw was green. Thank you. Okay, that's a borrowed poem from Norm Parker, Outlook, Washington. He does a lot of Western poetry functions up in that corner of the country. Now, we're hoping that, Chris, that was so well done. Can we have seconds? Do you have any seconds? Or, oh, great. Okay, here comes Chris. He came from 30 minutes away to be here.
Okay, this one I wrote for my uncle, his 90th birthday, and he used to live in Sharon Springs, Kansas, and we actually did ride horses out there, but so he no longer resides where the caballero can ride. Hard to believe that 37 years past, I was at your ranch riding a horse, thought it was a blast. That was on your spread in Sharon Springs. Since then, you've done many things. For example, moved to Broken Arrow, no longer a place for the wannabe caballero. But closer to family, that's what you desire. Somebody to look in on you as you retire. Memories are neat to reflect on as we age, chapters of our lives as we turn the next page. Wishing you the best as you celebrate the anniversary of your birth. Those present and those sending well wishes acknowledge your worth. Wishing you the best always, but especially today as you celebrate your 90th birthday.
You want to go round two? Do you have some more? Okay. Well, listen, I've got something in my bag of tricks. I never know how these functions are going to go, so I just bring all kinds of little trinkets. You got another one? Great. Okay. Well, then we're going to hear more from John Armstrong. Please come forward, John.
I don't want to hog up a lot of time, but I did write all these down on cards, so I want to get them out of the way. These next few are going to be haiku, and I write a lot of haiku probably because I have a 10-second attention span. And I also tend to think of myself as the fastest Zen in the West. So here we go. I thought I saw Venus over on the eastern horizon. Nope, streetlight. Northern New Mexico, high winds, dust, snow flurries. Albuquerque at last. Cold south of Tucson. Snowman in back of pickup. Hot diner coffee. And I'll end with a few humorous ones, then we can go on to wherever Price has going here. There was an old padre of old Tumakakari, who thought native customs a mockery. The Apaches done got him, to the glee of the Odatum, down to his shoes and his sockery. This next one's about a town called Benson in southern Arizona. It used to have a big powder plant where they manufactured blasting powder for the mines in the local area. A weathered old cowboy from Benson was out on the range riding fencing. Thunder from the old powder plant set his hat at a slant. He donned his slicker, expecting a drenching. And finally, here's the last one. In a canyon, a ranger was lone. The others were killed with a groan. An Indian named Tonto responded muy pronto. Thus, the William Tell Overture is known. Thank you very much.
Let's see, I wanted to share a poem by this lady. How many were aware that the Colorado has had a poet laureate for much longer than the United States of America? We didn't even have a poet laureate. Let's see, James Dickey, 1957. He was they called him the consultant to the library, poetry consultant to the Library of Congress. And then I think in the 70s or so, we started having poet laureates in this country. I mean, there's, England had poet laureate like Alfred Lord Tennyson. By the way, I learned all this from the PPLD tapes, and this is true fact. I heard the poet laureate of England, Alfred Lord Tennyson, I heard his voice recorded. In 1888, it was recorded by Edison. And you can hear him do the charge of the Light Brigade. And he says, "Into the jaws of death rode the 600. And Robert Browning recited for Edison, but he hear this recording equipment. Back those days, it freaks you out. Cameras, lights, they didn't have those things. That's why it freaked him out. And here comes Edison with this primitive device, and Robert Browning is doing a poem, and he forgets his lines. So I'm sorry, I'm so nervous, I forgot my lines. And they says, well, let's give a round of applause to Mr. Edison for his marvelous new invention. And then they do that hip, hip, hurrah thing. Well, anyway, this is our poet laureate. I mean, are you ready for this? I didn't know this until Aaron Anstead handed me this when I became the poet laureate in Colorado Springs, just an ambassador for the goodwill and the joy of poetry in our community. This is a very thriving poetic community. And he gave me this, and then I have to pass it on to the next poet laureate. It's Nellie, B-U-R-G-E-T. How would you pronounce it? Burgett? Nellie Burgett Miller, Poet Laureate of Colorado. This is 1936. And I didn't know this. She has one in here called a Poet's Tree. A tree planted on the campus of the University of Colorado, April 19th, 1934. And it makes me think of what Doc said in his poem about the memory and so forth, how, what we write down today can feed generations, many generations from now. We're still reciting Chaucer because of that power of the rhyme, when not a preely with the sure sota, and it's just in your bones and head. Well, do you want to hear this real quickly of how you used up my time? Hey, I'm the MC, I guess. I can break the rules. This is from Nellie Miller. She said on that Poet's Tree that was in her honor in 1934 at the grounds campus of the University of Colorado. Sometime, perhaps when I've gone away, someone may read this plate of bronze and wondering and say, what was she like? this one for whom one April day so long ago they named the poet's tree. And will you answer then for me in muted chords of wind-swept melody, oh, little joyous heaven-pointing tree? Say that she loved these lifted lands with yearning ecstasy. She was one who gave her days in glad discipleship to beauty. So quietly she served, we scarcely knew she moved among us till she slipped as quietly away. Oh, she loved short winter twilights when a slim moon climbs the mountain crest and the cold white wreaths that blow from opal drifts of freshly fallen snow. The meadowlark's melodious tune, a bank of columbines in June. She saw each year with glad surprise the flame of aspen gold against the skies. All these she loved. But I remember once I heard her say, beauty is but divinity made manifest to human eye, the radiant garment of God that we may know him by. Say this for me when I have gone away. So Nellie, here it is, the Cowboy Poetry Festival in Pikes Peak Library over on Union, that I read that poem for you. Thank you for saying it. We have it in print. All these voices from yesteryear, Will Rogers, Mark Twain, Roger Stone, and all of these people, they just keep feeding us for generation after generation. But boy, that was a long ordeal. Anybody else? Who's next? We're going round robin. Anybody emboldened to come up here and spew a poem or two for you?
I've got one more, Bryce.
Yay! Let's give it over to Doc. You're the medicine.
A tribe of white men gathered round the fire one evening with no breeze. They were completely unaware there was a red man in the trees. Under a canopy of scrub oak, he lay close against the ground, and though he couldn't see the cowboys, he could hear their every sound. He didn't understand their language, all the words that they were saying, but he tipped one ear to hear some kind of music box start playing. Echoed sounds and twanging strings held him suspended in a trance, and he could hear the cowboys sing, and he imagined how they'd dance. When all the white men finally went to sleep, the red man stayed awake, and through the night he tried to plan the morning gamble that'd take. At dawn, the cowboys saddled up to go out and find the strays. The red man slipped into their camp. One weathered tarp he slowly raised. Flat and shiny box of wood, carved extra smooth, was what he found. It had a hole like for a bird, and all the corners were carved round. It had a long shaft like his bow, some silver beads out on the end, and it was strung up 6 times over, but the shaft still didn't bend. At night he heard somebody play it, but he never saw the man, and so he couldn't really tell just how to hold it with his hand. He held the box up to the ear that heard the music in the night. He pressed the strings down with his left hand. He never used his right. And with the use of one hand only, he began to make it sing. Soon an ancient tribal chant was coming out the opening. Slipped away before the cowboys wandered back. He nimbly leapt from stone to stone, and though his feet would leave no track, he left his song there in strings. He left his spirit in the box, and every time the white man plays it, the red man's spirit talks.
you know, that just makes me think of my childhood again when I was a little boy, and they took us on a field trip from the Mayan Stratton home up to the Cave of the Winds, and as it happened, they had a group of native singers and dancers, Native American. I still remember that guy, the Indian dancer, and the native chants and the music that they were pulling out of everything around them. It's just the resonance up there too, and his name was Capeen. That just came back from yesteryear in the 40s, but that was beautifully done. Then it makes me think of how we're all in this together. You know how the strumming happened. There's many stories how we get this meter in our verses. Some people say it comes from the muffled meter of a mother's heart. You know, and we learn iambic pentameter and speech patterns, and we come out singing and gurgling with bliss, and may we never stop. And then, and in all cultures, people have learned to do the strings. They say maybe somebody was in the ancient times walking along where a whale had been beached and laid there in the sun, and some of the sinews and so forth and tendons were exposed, and to amuse themselves, maybe they plucked it, and that was the first harp, you know, with the whale sinews in that rib cage. And so they replicate that. And the ancient Hebrews, you know, they would have their trigons and harps, and they would, old David, he'd make music, and he'd send it over to the director of music, and then they'd put a big piece together and marry the music and the words, you know. So, and then in Russia, I remember this, I learned this from a Russian poet, Voznesenskiy. If you want to live a long life, pick up the guitar or music or poetry or create, or make sculpture or paint or whatever. But Voznesenskiy said, the poet has no patronym. Art is adolescence synonym. Blue-eyed he passes by, this Balalaka bard on wing, eye as keen as a bass's eye, a window wide into spring. The artist has no start at all. Art is always start. The artist has no end at all. Art is always start. I'm just pulling that out of my hat. So you'll have to go to the library, check him out, and look it up. Say, boy, Price really slaughtered that. But that's the gist of what he sung there. Well, let's see. Do I have any more? I did a horse poem. I could do a cow poem now. Okay, you want to hear a cow poem? This is one of mine from yesteryear when I was out on the rural plains of southern Colorado, out by Fowler doing a rural mail route. And I thunk this up because I thought there was some cattle starting to stampede on that. I used to go across Red Top Ranch, Mustang Ranch, and then Flying A Ranch, which Gene Autry, the singing cowboy, used to own. And a lot of rodeo stock comes from down there around Fowler. But anyway, this is just, it's called Stampede. In the vast, wide open spaces in a dust cloud known as now, stampeding cattle pause to quaff the ponds of if and how. But the dust is hardly settled, and they spook and run again, run across the open prairies toward the ponds of why and when. Stirring prairie, dust and running as the sun slides down the west, finding comfort in box canyons where they finally come to rest. It's kind of a philosophical profundity of platitudinous ponderosity with a metaphor, the cows in us. Let's give a big half round of applause for everybody's here for our performers today. And what a wonderful gift it is. And thank you to the library and the film crew and everybody who made this possible. Happy trails to you. We're gone now.